Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pursuit's Summer 2026 release. We're super excited to share everything that we've been working on for the past few months. We got a customer conversation here in a second, and Brandon's going to do a walkthrough of some awesome product stuff that we wanted to share. But with that said, I think here's some stuff that we're going to cover today. First thing is we're going to welcome Jenny Strobeck to the call. Jenny runs state and local government at Adobe. And we're going to have a conversation with her about what life was like before working with Pursuit and how the team, went about their work day to day, how much manual work went into doing the research and the homework to figure out what accounts they should be going after. So that'll be a really good thing. And then we'll also hear from Jenny a couple of really key use cases that are driving value for their team today. Then we're going to talk about what we shipped for our summer release in the last 3 months. And then, like I said, Brandon's going to do a live demo. And then we're going to wrap with some information on a really cool program Pursuit is kicking off, the $1 million guarantee. So with that, I think we can jump and bring Jenny in. Jenny, thanks for joining.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So pumped that you could make it. So I'd love if you could just maybe start out and give an overview of what life was like when you think about pipeline creation, finding opportunities, trying to get in there at the right moment. What was that like before you all signed up at Pursuit? What were you doing?
Sure. So, as many of you probably would also be able to determine, Adobe is a known company. Oftentimes, I find our largest challenge is people sort of know us based on how they sort of entered working with Adobe, right? So oftentimes that's PDF. That could also be Photoshop. That could also be, if someone has been in the commercial space, it could be web modernization or analytics or any other way, right? But I think oftentimes one of our biggest challenges is people have a preconceived notion. And so it has always been very time consuming for us to identify stakeholders that are in other parts of the business and make that quick introduction with respect to how we relate to their business. And we have seen just the increase in speed as far as the research that we're doing to find new personas, and then the suggestions that Pursuit provides that contextualize how to reach out to those folks has been the biggest uptick for us in working together.
And so I know there's a couple of really great use cases. One is around WCAG. So for anyone who's not super familiar, Jenny, feel free to chime in here. Well, actually, you'd be better suited to do it. What is WCAG, and what are sort of some of the things that public entities have to do now?
Sure. The Federal Department of Justice passed a mandate several years ago with a deadline of originally April 2026 that has been extended to April of 2027. But it was mandating that all state, city, county, and education entities needed to have accessible web presence prior to that April deadline. And originally, and even still sometimes, folks thought that meant website, right? So your website needs to be tagged and accessible. But as many of us know, government is very document heavy. When you interact with the DMV, if you have, some sort of case that is filed with the court system, all of that is in PDFs, either the action that you need to take, or if you're going to pull down sort of your record, all of that's very document heavy. And what we found was there was a huge gap where some states had hundreds of thousands or millions of documents dating back to the 80s and 90s that all need to be tagged and accessible in order to meet that mandate. And fines for inaccessibility were mounting at the 75 to 100K per incident. So very costly to fix that.
And that fine is the DOJ fine, right? There's also the risk of other lawsuits that are out there as well.
I think we can all agree too that that's an awesome mandate. That is beneficial for everybody to be able to have readable documents. Can you talk a little bit about how the go-to-market strategy was to identify things that weren't digitized or entities that weren't digitized yet, so you knew who to target before Pursuit?
So again, I think that one of the biggest gaps were there's a lot of people that in government sort of align with that charter, right? So you can think about webmasters, but also CIO, also accessibility lead, perhaps even the director of health and human services or somebody else. Like there's a lot of people that may have a stake in that, in that issue. And so when we started talking to Pursuit, what knocked our socks off and what we really thought was the differentiator was that the tool was able to go through and assess and say, like, this webmaster has, published this blog post about accessibility. And so here is messaging that would align with that person. And then immediately you can go to this IT manager is also talking about accessibility from a different perspective, and sort of go all the way down the line and conduct that research in minutes instead of probably days, right? Or weeks.
Yeah, totally. And there was an example, I think a couple of weeks ago that in a city council meeting, and this is the point, everyone always talks about being multi-threaded, Jenny, and I know we've talked about that in the past too, but like one way this shows up in with a city is there's all the different departments, and oftentimes each department controls their section of the website. And so, I think what the example that came up a couple of weeks ago was there was a person running libraries for a city who was like trying to do this WCAG thing for the whole city, and so now you find out that like there's one department that it was the library that wanted to set this up, and then that can cascade over, and and then you're like working up into IT, you're working across into all the other departments. So it's just kind of a sticky thing to wrangle. So I think that's a phenomenal example. Did you have anything else on that? I was going to ask about business licenses.
No, go ahead. I think that's great.
And another one, Jenny, like, could you just talk for a second about the business license initiative and some of the stuff that you all are thinking about as it relates to that one?
Yeah, so the best example off the top of my head is that the state of West Virginia the governor announced reciprocity for barbers and beauticians who have licenses in other states. So if you're coming in from a state that neighbors West Virginia, like Pennsylvania or Virginia, you'd be able to practice in West Virginia, and that increases their revenue. They're able to tax and conduct business there. If you go to their website, it is a entirely paper-based process with PDFs that are static PDFs, right? So they're not even forms that you can enter. You have to print it, you have to fill it in, and then you have to mail it with a check. And we were able to surface that very quickly, again, across multiple other entities and states, but and go back to these folks and provide them an example of, if we were to digitize this for you, you would be able to get a response in minutes rather than a week or two that might be wrong, right? Because again, you have the right technology, it can make sure that you're filling in all of the parts of the form that need to be filled in, and somebody doesn't miss something. Because I don't know about you all, but I've mailed paper forms and I'm like, did I even get that thing right? So
did they even get it right? Yeah.
So again, It's a win-win, right? Because you've got people that now can get an incremental piece of revenue for their livelihood, and the state can see some additional revenue on their side as well. So it's a win-win across the board. And Pursuit has been really helpful with helping us, again, look at like paper-based process and where there are some needs to digitize.
Yeah. So I think one way that we've talked about this, Jenny, is like if you were conceptually as a sales leader, if you everyone knows that doing research is great, right? Like every sales leader, I think, believes that. It's just a matter of like, is there enough hours in the day to do it at scale? And I think that's something that what we're trying to educate folks about is actually that research can now be done in seconds, and you can do it across your entire TAM. Every AE can have it done across their entire patch. And so now you know who's actually in market, who's got budget. You know that there was a leadership change. You know who the library leader is, who the director of IT is, who run public works, permitting, licensing, all those sort of things. And so all that homework gets compressed down. And so you can actually now, as a seller, spend more of your time with the customer, which is how every sales leader wants it to run. Jenny, what would be killer is, I don't want you to share anything top secret that you'd have to kill us over. But what are you comfortable sharing just in terms of like at the end of the day, the business impact that you all have been able to see in the couple months, I guess couple quarters that we've been working together?
Sure. So we signed in January. That's our fiscal year starts in December. So that's right about at the beginning of our fiscal year. And we've seen an uptick in pipeline year over year of about 5.2 million over last year. That's about 50% higher than it was last year. So
Wow.
I think it's substantial. And again, I think it's really the time savings around researching. It's even made us smarter in other ways. So the tool actually surfaced something that came into my inbox, a very small county that was talking about accessibility in WCAG. And, I clicked right to where in the video at this county meeting they were talking about it. And it was interesting to hear them talk about the problem, right? Because it was a way for us to check that our positioning does align with what these folks are facing. But it also surfaced this county had made a decision to go with a different technology, and they talked about what price they were going to pay and what they were getting for that. So it was even providing some market intelligence for us around, what our competitors were doing that we wouldn't have seen. There's no way I would have seen this
Right.
county meeting any other way. So it's really
Yeah.
great for that too.
Yeah, awesome. And the kind of the public records requests that sit underneath that give you expiration dates and things. It just all compounds into like helping your team be more productive. And I would argue that's a win for everybody. That's a win for governments who are able to have more compliant websites, right?
Citizens.
Like it's a win for your team. Like sellers, they make more money because they're more productive. That helps everyone hit their numbers. So I think it's a great thing for everybody, and really appreciate you joining, Jenny, and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, happy to. Happy to. I'm excited to see what success we can see since we've seen such growth in 6 months.
Well, let's
Yes.
stick around, and you'll see all the stuff that just gets sent out the door in our summer release too. But thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jenny.
Take care. Cool. Well, I think segueing from that real life customer story, one of the things that we want to make sure that we're talking about is how Pursuit's product team works and how we're listening to feedback that we're getting from customers related to their goals. You can see some of this on the page, but how do you make sure you're in every opportunity and generating pipeline? How do you make sure that when you hire a new rep, they get onboarded? If you're a bigger company that's at scale and you sell 37, I was on the phone earlier today with a company, they sell 37 different products. So what's the right thing to lead with? Same thing as if you're a tiny startup though, like you don't have infinite resources, what accounts should you be focused on?
And you need to know the context deeply to know how to lead for that specific product.
100%. So I think it comes back to pipeline generation, but maybe Brandon, share some of the stuff that, as you can see with the emojis, got shipped.
Mike added these emojis. He's very proud of them.
It's emoji, plural.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, if you take away one thing from this slide, it's that we have built everything in this summer release working with customers. We take feedback seriously and we ship fast. So just super excited, and I hope you can see that in the next few minutes here when we get to the demo, how that impacts not only pipeline, rep efficiency, but also allows you to act on autopilot, send out sequences and emails, and then prove that it's working. See the ROI of pipeline getting generated. So yeah, super excited. I think one thing that's important, no matter how many features we push, is the underlying data, right? So if better data means more pipeline. And if you don't have good data, you can't act on it, you can't do anything. And I'm really proud to show these numbers. And I think what you can see here is that we have the deepest data in the market.
In SLED.
One of them is contacts. The other is FOIA records that we actually go and manually have to.
Hold on. On the contacts point, that you'll notice it says validated and verified, right? I think it's actually more than 2x that, the total number that exists, but they no longer work there or they retired. So this is an ongoing thing.
We have 9 million contacts, but actually validated, verified with our confidence scoring algorithm, you can see. And that's piped in through all of the systems. But yes, contacts. Second thing is FOIA. And FOIA is a complex beast. I think a lot of people don't understand the systems that the government has in place to operate on these FOIA records. You send a request, there's different laws per state. Each state has a different number of days that they can respond in, and we kind of have to manage that, or the person submitting the FOIA has to manage that whole process end to end. And I'm just incredibly proud of what we've built in our FOIA team to be able to do the scale that we do. We have over 390,000 FOIA records that are piped through the system, and that means contracts, purchase orders for the last 5 years, and all of that contract data, expiration date, PO amount, who was it sent through a reseller, or was it
Right.
what was the description of the SKU? All of that is built into the product, and it starts from manually getting. This is something that astonished me when we first started doing this. Is like we'd get CD-ROM or CDs that we would have to go and like find a CD-ROM drive to parse the data from. We'd get faxed documents. We would get USB drives.
Thumb drives. Yeah.
So I don't know, just a little bit of context there. Do you have anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, I think there's, to your point on every state's got their own law, I think it's important to recognize that if you're doing a one-off FOIA, the follow-up of like, I submitted it 5 days ago. Per the state law, there's 5 days to respond. But by the way, that state law kicks in from the moment that it was received. And if it's an email-based submission, it could end up in some other, filter.
Yeah. Did they even receive it?
Where the clock doesn't even start, right? And so if you really want to understand your TAM and know what competitor contracts are out there, when the start dates are, what the end dates are, what the out clauses are, what SKUs they purchased, there needs to be a system behind it that is following up. Was it actually received? Okay, now it went past the first deadline, follow up again, and doing it all in a way that is like not obtrusive and not annoying, and being able to make sure that it's well managed behind the scenes. We've got a whole machine behind it that is both AI and human to make sure that the documents are being returned. And if there's 392,000 records, we've sent more than that in terms of requests.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and then that leads us to the third point that that's just FOIA, what we were talking about. The other side of the data, pyramid is documents, and that means that we go and we use our proprietary crawler to access 160,000 plus public sector entities, fire departments, school districts, states, state agencies, and we go and scan every single document we can find on the web. And we use not only a web search agent, but we have purpose-built just for SLED a crawler that goes extremely deep into these websites and their open data portals. And we ingest every single document to find relevant signals in every piece of contact information, validate them, verify, and just wanted to give a look behind the scenes of like our data, just so people understand how we get it.
For sure, and I think it's easy to assume that like all of the data that's available from different providers, or even in Google or in Claude or ChatGPT, it's easy to assume that like everyone has the same data, when in reality that's not the case. I think if you're trying to, at the end of the day, grow pipeline, what that means is you have to have access to the board docs, and across all the different websites, and in every nook and cranny of those websites you find PDFs, like Jenny was just saying, that talk about what's going on, their capital improvement plan, their proposed budget, approved budget, annual comprehensive financial report. There's all these different document types that are buried down in there. That proprietary crawler, what that actually means is like we purpose-built for all the different government websites a system that will go in and read those and pull them out. And that at the end of the day, the reason why our customers care is because it actually results in more pipeline than any other provider on the market.
Which is a great segue. What did all that data produce, Mike?
Well, 2.9 billion in pipeline generated for our customers, and that's across all the different logos and more that you see here. And just to call out a couple of things here, you look at Central Square, and I think we're super proud of the results that they've been able to demonstrate. But there's massive pipeline generation just in the last couple of quarters since starting with Pursuit that is an order of magnitude more than the previous setup that they had. Yeah. But
even hearing from Jenny a few minutes ago that $5 million in pipeline since January is impressive. Super excited and proud to partner with all these companies. Each one of these companies is doing something amazing for our society, and I'm just happy to be on the back end supporting them.
To be able to make their lives a little bit easier. And I to shout out our friends at EM1, They're building AI for emergency managers. It's a startup. They don't have the scale operationally that some of our other customers have, but they're able to punch way above their weight because they're using Pursuit for automated identification of signals and then launching email sequences in a multi-threaded way to the various different people that are in their buying committee. So it all comes back to more pipeline, but also better win rates because you're able to spend time with people who are actually able to buy.
Yeah. Okay, so all of that said, we're going to show you how those customers are crushing it using Pursuit. But I just want to take a moment, Mike, and sit in the pain of the old way for a second. You've been a salesperson for, I don't know, CEO is always a salesperson, right? Tell me how you would go and do deep research if you were going to. What would you do?
For sure. Well, I'll give you one step better than that. I mean, this slide is derived from mapping what one of our customers' best reps did manually. There was this customer they have one of their AEs who sold 13 times the amount that everyone else sold in bookings each year. So imagine you have a chart, this person was off the charts. What do they know that no one else did? And the punchline is research. This AE would spend literally 2 months, this was before Pursuit, going through looking at budgets, looking at agendas, looking at past RFPs and when they were submitted. In some cases, they would submit a one-off manual FOIA. They would go, of the 1,500 accounts that were in her territory, she narrowed it down to 70 that she wanted to focus on. But that took her 2 months, right? Going through all these steps, hunting for real buying signals, pulling in contact data, tracking down, does that person still work there, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then even once you get there, following up on emails, did a BDR that I was working with already reach out? I have to create this network to understand what's happening in each account. And
that's at the contact level, and then it's okay, what does that contact care about? Have they talked in a document or in a board meeting what their goals are? Because you want to be relevant, you want to be timely.
Yeah.
And so then you're handwriting all these emails. But if you do that work, you close 13x more, right? And so but only she did it. And it's well, why doesn't everyone else do it? I think there's a bunch of reasons why, but I think what Pursuit is trying to do is compress that research time down into a couple of minutes, and we're going to show how you go from signal to actually taking action on that pipeline.
Yeah, and I think this might sound a little bit like your current world, right? Or you might have a tool that's generating some data points for you and doing some research, but we found that sometimes we hear that it takes a whole team to implement that or integrate that, and we found that unacceptable. We want you, as Mike said, within minutes to get started and act like the best rep with all of the visibility that you need into every account. So, demo time.
Demo time.
Demo time. Sounds like hammer time.
Yeah, I know. We should have that music queued up. Da-na-na-na.
Next time. All right. Cool. Let me share my screen here. And live demo. There's my email. Okay, so no audience. Good. All right, so I'm going to walk through if I was a rep living in, what we just talked about was BP, 2023 BP, before Pursuit. I'm naming it that. Now we're AP. So I wake up, I get an email. You can see it was delivered to me at 6:13 in the morning, and I work for a cybersecurity company. We sell identity management and endpoint security. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so I wake up, I see this awesome City of Long Beach, a $50,000 grant was received by the city on June 2nd. Super relevant. I'm gonna jump in there and open up my inbox in Pursuit. And this is, I would treat this like any other email inbox. The goal is to always get to inbox 0, right? And you want to work through each email, marking it as spam, replying, deleting, categorizing it. And that's exactly what we've built. We've built a workflow for you to go and automatically consume all of the data, and in a few minutes, we'll show you how you can put it on autopilot, but let's just assume we're doing human in the loop type thing. So you can see here, Long Beach, is here. You can jump into the meeting that it talked about that. You can see that it matches the signal criteria that I care about. And something else that I want to point out here is in the top right, if it's integrated into your Salesforce or any CRM, we have HubSpot, Salesforce Dynamics, and Zapier and webhooks to connect to anything. But one thing that I wanted to point out is like you can just hop right into the Salesforce and start acting out of there. You can open up the Chrome extension, start using that. But let's go through and say like, okay, this is actually a great opportunity. We have the network specialist who's probably very responsible for this. I don't feel like I want to reach out right now. I just want to create an opportunity. So that automatically goes and creates an opportunity in Salesforce. The play is set up so that it automatically puts it into the right stage, automatically assigns the right close date, and you can see it shows for your teammates who are also in pursuit to understand that this signal has already been acted on. So
that's true for like if there's an email sent too.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll show that here in 2 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and just mark this one as done. Great. Now I'm on to the next one. Arbor Park School District. Modernization of network infrastructure. Great. I solved this problem. I want to go and send prospecting emails. I want to multi-thread. All of these emails are great. So I'm going to go ahead and just select every single contact and send a prospecting email to them. I and my team of RevOps or whoever I work with has built out the voice of the prospecting email in the back end to sound and act like we should as a company. So you can go ahead, run play, and that will allow you to review them. You know, maybe you want a little bit of, like I said, a human in the loop. We don't feel like we want to go fully automated. You can go and see the email that it's going to send, approve, send it out. Super quick, super streamlined, and I find.
And by the way, just to like park on that for one moment, I think like what would need to have gone right in the BP world in order for this to happen? Like you would have to have somehow figured out that signal happened, right? Yep. So maybe someone on the team flags it, or you get a Google alert, or you're just doing research. Then you're going to have to spend time digging through the PDF, right? Oh, go find page 192 out of the 400-page doc. Pull out the thing that's relevant. Go find the contacts.
Write the email.
Map what that contact's role is to what the pain point is, and figure out like, okay, if I'm that person, what do I want? And like Pursuit just automates that whole thing with a button click, and like you said, not just spray and pray, but allows you to like actually edit it, review it with a human in the loop. I think it takes the research time down to a minute.
Yeah, and I've already gone through 3 signals that are potential opportunities, right? And so I marked that one as done. I acted on it. I created the opportunity, and now I get to the city of New York, and you can see that it's pulling in data from Salesforce. We have an open opportunity. One of my teammates, Eric Kirkus, shout out to Kirkus, is working on this, and it's in a value proposition. They have an estimated price of $96,000. Maybe I'm like, okay, that's good, but I sell a different product. This opportunity I know is for product Z out of A through Z. I also see that my teammate who's in Pursuit, Chris Boyer, engineer on our team, appreciate you, has like also acted on this. They already sent a prospecting email to Scott based on this. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm gonna just move on. I'm gonna mark this one as done and keep going, right? And that's the process that we want you to kind of experience and understand. And there's a bunch of other functionality that I'm skimming over here right now. I think one, you can save it for later. You can dismiss. You can tell us why, and we'll learn constantly off your feedback if it isn't good. You can create any amount of plays that you want. Maybe you want to generate a talking points because you're going to dial them, right? I think here you can see we give you the extension for Michael Hughes. It's awesome. One other thing too is like maybe you just want to gather the contacts, put them into the CRM, pipe that to Outreach or any other platform you have. You can do that right here. You can see Salesforce, HubSpot, webhooks, anything you need to get into the systems that you use.
Yeah, the multiplayer aspect of it I think is worth parking on for a moment, because oftentimes you'll have a BDR, it depends on how many products you sell. There might be like a point AE with a bunch of other like solutions focused people that the point AE will bring in. So you really need to know what's being said to this account at scale. And you technically could do that without Pursuit getting the data back from Salesforce or from HubSpot, because you could go read it yourself in the CRM. But the reality is that's just another step that people are like, well, I don't know if Brandon already reached out, I don't want to, so I don't know. It's just another mental hoop or barrier that you have to get over.
Yeah.
So putting it all in the UI makes it so that the outreach can actually happen in a super timely way.
Yep. Okay, so that's one of the awesome things that we released is this concept of plays. And I showed you them by just acting, create opportunity, sending a prospect email. This is all what we have built and called plays. And it's basically automating systems that work. So let's go and put our RevOps hat on, or a little bit of like, I want the team to run in this way and I want our voice. Jenny said specifically, like, to be able to customize the voice is super important to us because Adobe's a big brand. You need to make sure that you kind of tee up the prospect to understand that we're not just Photoshop.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump into plays and show you how you can do that. I think, right here, easy as this, shows you exactly how it's going to work. You can send it via Gmail, Outlook, any provider that you need, and you can adjust the prompt here using all of the things that are available to you in Pursuit. So your company, the product that you're selling, the signal description that actually came and alerted the rep, right? You might want to build out the email should have something very specific to that person.
Yeah. They're looking to replace their SIS if it's a school account. They're looking for a drone as a first responder initiative. Whatever they just got a grant approved for this cyber project. Whatever those signal descriptions are, I think it's critical to be able to push that into the outreach that you're doing.
Yep. So that's one thing, how to control your voice. Now, let's say we're like, okay, we're ready to go. We're ready to go full autopilot. This is what EM1 did and has started booking incredible amounts of meetings. And I'll walk you through how that would work. So one, you just go ahead, you create a sequence. How many number of emails do you want to send? Let's go with 3. And that starts you off into this email sequence builder. And this allows you to create the first touch, the follow-up email, a breakup email, whatever flow that you think works great. And it comes out of the box with ones that we've seen work really well. And here's a live preview using a signal that one of your reps, since you've been using Pursuit, has actually got. So this is a real signal for one of our CIAM and WIC products. And in the body, you're able to control the AI, the messaging. You can hard code a calendar link in there. You really have full control, and I just wanted to show how this would work. And by the way, once you enable this, you can have this automatically send the emails once a radar signal comes in.
Yeah. You said something that's really important. You said hard code. And I think this is something that go-to-market teams often wonder, because there's a definite structure that they want their emails to follow that they've proven to work.
Yep.
They don't want it to go off the rails and just like start inventing things and hallucinating. So there's kind of this weird and challenging mix between something that is AI generated and non-deterministic versus like, no, we just want to hard code this in.
Yeah.
So I think, show us an example of that.
So for example, everything in the squiggly line star is telling AI, go and do your magic. But for example, and I said tell a joke about the buying signal. Why did the records modernization grant go to therapy? It had too many identity issues.
That's actually pretty good.
I don't know if it was that good. Okay, but then you're always like, okay,
it's a dad joke.
JK, that was a joke. Here's my calendar. Please book me, right? So like that, here's my calendar, please book me, will never change. It's in the sequence and you have full control over it. You can remove all of the AI out of it. You can put AI into any spot you want. And yeah, that's what I meant by hard coding.
So it's a hybrid of like stuff that humans specifically tested and say like, we want the email to have this in it. We want it to start, hi, so-and-so, end, thanks, whatever.
Yep.
Include this text around the URL. But then because you don't want to just have this like garbage, spray and pray, you want it to be dynamically infused with like, what is the signal, right?
Yep.
So I think that's awesome.
Sweet. So we're the demo's, halfway over. I want to show a couple of more things. And real quick, I just want to walk through like super advanced mode. and show you all of the things. Your imagination can go crazy here and you can build whatever you want. Whenever a rep clicks on a radar signal, automatically create the sales opportunity and automatically send it via Gmail, right? Like you can do anything, and you can see we have all of these, send a Slack message, log the email to Salesforce. All of these actions are built with integrations to your system in mind.
And by the way, once that's set up, typically as part of implementation, we work with RevOps or a sales leader on your side to come up with what are the plays that you want to have. And then once you set these up, I think it's important to connect the dot back to the radar thing. Then you literally have a button click to do this.
I'll go back into Inbox and just show that one more time. But every play that gets created here, now you can now access it. Any rep can access it.
Yeah.
So one other thing I want to show is our MCP. I think this has been something that we've heard from a lot of customers is we want to access via our AI harnesses. We have a whole system built into place that's where everybody wants to be AI forward, and everybody should. And we have these harnesses that are connecting to hundreds of different systems, and we've put in a lot of work to make our AEs and our systems agentic.
Gong, Salesforce, our product documentation, our help docs, all of it.
Yeah, battle cards, all of the things.
Right.
And so inside of our integrations, which you can see there's a bunch here, if you scroll down, you can connect it to any of, the foundational models and more. Any harness that supports an MCP, you can do this. And what the MCP gives you access to is literally everything that I showed you through Claude. You can get access to the research workbooks. You can get access to the signals. You can search entities
Hold on,
in
time
rich
out. What's
context.
a research workbook? Just say it.
It's where you go and you can do really deep research. You can do your account scoring in.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on demoing.
No, I'm not saying demo it. I'm just saying that's something we've talked about in the last release.
Yeah.
Was how you can use basically AI within Pursuit to go create a territory plan, map your whole
It's something
TAM.
that Jenny and her team uses to go and identify, hey, have they done any digitization for documents? Like go and do the deep research using our proprietary
Has there been a
crawler and
leadership
web search
turnover in the
agents.
last 18 months? When's the contract expire? Is
Yep.
there a compliance mandate? All that stuff.
So I can walk through setting up the MCP. I think it's as easy as going to and figuring out where you set it up in your harness. You add the connector, you go ahead, you add a custom one, and you copy and paste that in, and you're good to go. And then I pre-built this. I can run it live. I just know we're running out for time here. But you can see, do some research using Pursuit on the city of Abilene.
Abilene, you got it.
I have a problem announcing cities. It's an inside joke here. But you can see that it's literally gone and accessed all of Pursuit's data, something that you might have done research on in one of your workbooks, and it gives you everything you need to know here. And I think this is super important, not only if you're living in this agentic world, but also if you're on the road. Like, if Claude has a great app, and a lot of people talk about this. So you're an AE who's driving around and talking to people. You need that ready for you to give a good conversation.
Totally. You're at a conference and you see the city manager for Dubuque, Iowa, and you're like, what is Dubuque doing related to whatever you sell? Drone is first responder. And then it's got the whole context right there.
Yep. So that's my demo. We said we pushed 60 plus features. That was probably 6 of them.
Yeah.
And just incredibly proud of the engineering and product team. Thank you so much here at Pursuit. And from here, Mike, will you just recap what we went over in the last 45, 46 minutes?
Totally. I think the key points to take away are deepest data in SLED, where we've got this purpose-built crawler that goes into every nook and cranny of a government website, their meetings, all their documents, the news, FOIAs, and pulls out stuff that's relevant, right? And without that data foundation, none of the workflow stuff that you just showed actually matters, right?
Yep.
Because you could have 2 systems that look mostly identical, and without one having great foundational data, it's gonna fall flat. And we've all heard horror stories of that. So I think that's one key thing, is always know that is such a priority for us at Pursuit, is going deep. Surfacing the signals that are relevant, right? Like, as part of our implementation, we have teams of people that will help you curate the signals, make sure your research workbooks are set up so that your team is productive and actually spending more time selling, and then translating that into like the ongoing day-to-day pipeline generation, getting the email inbox, getting the Slack summary, being able to button click, take action, build pipeline. By the way, build not just like more pipeline, but pipeline that's likely to close, which is actually a good segue into where we wanted to do.
Yeah, but wait, there's more.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No.
But wait, there's more. So Pursuit, one of the things that we shared recently is we have incredibly high conviction that we can help folks generate pipeline. And so what we're offering for new customers is, a $1 million pipeline guarantee. What that means is that if you sign up for Pursuit and you don't generate $1 million in pipeline, we will give you your money back, straight up. Like, we will surface to you those opportunities. We can't guarantee that they're going to turn into close one revenue. Obviously, there's a lot that has to go into that. But in terms of guaranteeing the top of funnel, the pipeline creation and the surfacing of things that are relevant, we're happy to put our money where our mouth is. So wanted to at least take a minute to mention that. And I think that goes, we wouldn't be confident doing that without all the things that we just went over.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Cool, so that kind of wraps up the release aspect of everything, and we have a few minutes to go over some questions that were dropped in the chat. Can you export these emails to sequencing tools, i.e. Outreach? Otherwise, I'd imagine these one-off email gets lost in reps' inboxes. So, great question. Everything is tied, is actionable, and we can make that happen with usually through your CRM. By the way, the sequences that get lost in reps' emails doesn't happen because we pipe that right back into the CRM. We make sure that it's built into the workflow, whether that's Outreach or SalesLoft, or just right out of Salesforce, right? So I think that's the answer. Is it's possible. We can do it through Zapier, webhooks, and if you're using the plays, you can customize it to however you want.
Can I add one thing?
Else. Yeah.
The other thing I would add there that we actually didn't mention when we were going over the demo is you can send the initial outreach can go from a different domain. So, for instance, if rather than coming from pursuit.us, it could come from trypursuit.com or getpursuit.com or gopursuit.com. And then you're not going to risk damaging your core, URL, your domain, with emails that get flagged. So I think that's another key thing to mention, and that's all configurable in the thing, and like Brandon was saying, can be routed downstream to any of those other systems.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions? Josh is in there. Also, apparently there was a lot of lost audio. Apologies about that.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that is a bummer. Sorry, I'm going through. There's a bunch of these questions. I think one of them is can you, do you have a Pursuit? Is there a Slack integration at all? And we did show that, but I think it's one of the plays. You can send a Slack message. We also have our Pursuit Slack bot that is tied into any channel you want to put it in. You can access it via the same way you would the Claude MCP or AI MCP. It has access to your research workbooks. It has access to the signals. The other thing built into our Slack integration is if you want those signals not coming to you in an email in the morning, you want it to go to you as a DM, you can pipe that right through Slack as well.
Yeah, and one cool thing that some of our customers are doing is they actually pipe it into separate DMs by sales managers. So for instance, if a sales manager has, reporting to them 6 or so AEs, all of that sales manager's AEs signals that come in the morning can get piped into that same channel. That way, the whole team sees them, the sales manager sees them, and the AE all sees them. Same thing with the BDR, team there as well. So cool. Thanks for the time, everybody. We're super excited. That was just the stuff that we built in the last couple of months. See you back here for fall in a few months. Thanks for the time.